Thank you, Chair. Again, on the subject that we've just touched upon, I remember a time not that long ago, referring to the incompetence I've just referenced, when the public were told that there was a £10.8 million black hole in this council. Indeed, month on month, the council is showing that it's projecting a budget surplus, not just this year, as it did last year, which, again, I think residents made their views clear on who they trust to run this administration and its finances. Indeed, since 2017, this council has had the ability to flexibly use capital receipts. That means the freedom to use unallocated capital receipts that are not allocated for any other purpose, with no effect on its debt, with no effect on its prudential indicators, no effect on day-to-day spending, no effect on any of those things, in order to fund transformation, regeneration, reform. Do you think they took such a freedom? Of course they didn't. They'd rather charge people more council tax, indeed, as Councillor Ingle did every single year when he was leader of the council, charge residents more and delivered less, so I can't imagine why they got rid of him. What is being...
What point of order?
I'm still here.
What point of order?
Please indulge me, I don't know the number, but I would point out that he keeps saying I've been booted out, and I'm still here. Having taken back the seat that he ran away from.
Okay, Councillor Ingle. Councillor Ingle, as a former leader of the council of many years, I would expect you to know your standing orders and be able to speak.
And in fairness, Chair, this sort of bregatio never happened under us, so it never came up.
Right. So I think for future reference and to help you, you're seeking a point of personal explanation. Now, certainly you could raise that via 26.1. Which is when a councillor can speak again. I'm just perusing standing orders very quickly to see where else you might be able to use that. 15.4a you could use about a personal explanation. 15.13, 15.5, set point 7. Please feel free to use those in future. Councillor Swords, if I could return to your introductory speech.
Thank you, Chair. Back to the matter at hand. What is being proposed here is for the council to use that flexibility, to use the freedom the government has given, to inject much needed investment into transforming this council, to making it more efficient, to delivering better services for residents, to furthering the regeneration that this administration is delivering. We can do all of those things with no effect on our debt, without putting up council tax, no effect on future finance, no effect on prudential indicators, because of the freedoms that we are now taking hold of. I, can't quite understand why the council didn't do it previously, but it is doing it now. So I have no doubt, of course, that such investment, with almost no strings attached in that regard, would, of course, gain cross-party support. I could see no reason why they wouldn't. This is absolutely for the benefit of residents, and I think any fair-minded resident that would understand that unallocated capital receipts the capital has accrued over a number of years that fail to be spent. I should refer, of course, this doesn't apply to housing capital receipts, something the opposition know much about, given that they had to hand £3.5 million of them back to the government because they failed to use them. This is not of the same ilk. This is for general fund spending. So this will absolutely further what this council is doing. It will enable us to go further and faster, and I'm very much hope that it will secure cross-party support for those very reasons.
Thank you, Councillor Swords. Councillor Leopard, I saw your hand go up to second this. Do you wish to speak at this time? Not at this moment. Okay, I throw this open to debate. Does anyone else wish to speak in the chamber? Yeah. Councillor Edwards.
I think I might have preferred to speak a little later in the debate, but never mind, I'll kick off. What I find amazing about this is, from the public's point of view, they wouldn't know what you're talking about. There's one line in this report here which talks about transformation. When you wanted to have the debate on transformation, you insisted initially that it be held in a closed forum. It had to be a secret debate. The public weren't allowed in. And in fact, if the press, in fact, it went so far as to ensure that the microphones and everything were switched off before the debate had even continued, because somehow or other they weren't, whilst on the one hand they were saying that there was a special council meeting, nobody could have even come into the first bit of the council meeting. And in terms of this line here, what you have here is to enable the creation of a transformation programme, funding initial feasibility.
Councillor Edwards, I'm sorry, there's a point of order being raised. Councillor Perrin, what point of order do you wish to raise?
Well, there's a convention, Chair, that people speak through you, not the members of the public. And I thought they were doing a massive discourtesy. And I know you're so polite, Chair, as not to raise that. But I thought I was on your behalf.
Well, I'm not sure that's a technical point of order, although there is a convention that exists in this chamber.
Oh yeah, what's the number?
What's the number of that?
Come on, what's the number?
I've just told him it isn't. There isn't a number. As far as I'm aware, that's not a point of order. However, he's right. There is a convention that people should speak through the chair. So I'll thank you for reminding us all of that. But it's not a point of order, and I'm going to have to turn you down. Councillor Edwards, please continue.
I'm quite capable of playing the gallery. I will look that way and I will look that way. There are members of the public here that I was referring to. They're equally in terms of the chair. So trying to get back now, let's get back on here. So there is one line in here, Chair, one line. To enable the creation of a transformation programme, funding some initial feasibility work and the potential cost of service reconfiguration. And what do they want to spend? They want to spend £500,000. £500,000 on this. So as far as the public is concerned, until you just made the statement that you just made there, Councillor Swords, the public wouldn't have had a clue what this was about. So what is this actually about? You look at this organisation, you think, to misquote Hamlet, there must be something rotten in the state of Harlow. In fact, I've never seen anything like it in any other authority. Over the last few years, we've lost two chief executives, four directors of services, and latterly an interim chief executive. All of them left suddenly without any opportunity for councillors to formally thank them. Others have left and just not been replaced. What does that actually say about our organisation? 18 months ago we were told, or you were told, by the LGA that we were the second most improved council in the country. A feedback in the report in March said things have improved significantly. There's a very different way very different feel to the way the Cabinet and the SMB at that time consisted of Andrew Bramage, Simon Hill, Andrew Murray, Simon Freeman, etc. There's a very different feel to the way they interact. They've all gone. So what on earth would the LGA say about today? So we're now being asked to improve expenditure of £500,000 to enable the creation of a transformation programme. Why aren't we, and why aren't the public being told the detail of the process?
15.4 is the content and length of speeches.
Yeah, my understanding of the point of order, Chair, through you, is that the content of a speech must have due, direct relation to the report at hand. I'm not sure
Speeches must be directed to the issue under discussion, or a personal explanation, or a point of order. Yes, you're contending that Councillor Edwards is straying from the point in hand, I take it. Councillor Edwards, could I ask you to ensure that you do stick to the point? Thank you.
I would certainly attempt to, providing I'm given the opportunity.
I will give you every opportunity afforded under the Constitution to continue to do so.
So, why aren't the public being told details as to the process and what the administration are seeking to achieve? Instead of that, what we have is a situation where staff have been briefed. We as councillors haven't been briefed. There wasn't a discussion at the special council meeting. There was no room for that, and indeed the minutes of that council meeting identify that and lay out that there wasn't a discussion. I can totally understand where there's a need for private discussion if there are specific members of staff or commercial confidentiality, but certainly not in terms of the general principles. So why have the administration wasted so much time? Previously, an interim CEO was brought in with the sole intention of assisting us to appoint another CEO. Over the last 6 months, we've had another interim CEO in there. Doing what?
What personal explanation?
Thank you, Chair. I referenced in my opening remarks about council not using such a freedom previously. So a general question, I just wonder if Councillor Edwards ever actually read flexible use capital receipts policy of any other council, yes or no answer.
I'm sorry, Councillor Swords, you can't use a personal explanation to ask a question. You can use a personal explanation to clarify where you believe you've been misunderstood. I think you've done that. Now I'll return to Councillor Edwards to complete his speech.
I've no intention of answering that question. It's purely a technique to try and put me off my stride. So going back to why wasn't the last CEO's role used to help us appoint a full-time CEO? That surely there was their role. So it all looks. What's going on now?
Can I ask you to wrap up?
Well, given that I've been interrupted on at least 5 occasions.
Yeah, but the clocks get stopped for every interruption, Councillor Edwards. Can I ask you to wrap up, please?
You're almost finished.
This all looks extremely, for want of a better word, fishy. Rather than appoint a CEO, what they're doing, they're moving towards instead of a CEO and a senior level of management, they seem to have going for a strong leadership model of management, whatever that may mean. I'm not saying that we shouldn't review the management structure, but it should be done in an objective, open and transparent way, not in a way that looks instead like it's implementing by stealth a hidden agenda. So can I suggest that that we don't agree this recommendation until we have the opportunity for a cross-party way to agree the process for appointing a sustainable senior management team, one that can survive the slings and arrows of the political adversity and serve our town, whatever its political complexion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Dunn.
Thank you, Chair. I've taken a bit of issue really with the leader's preamble to the report. Hopefully I can comment on that because it's not really to do with the report. Is that okay? It's just that you were talking about accuracy on leaflets and what we were putting on our leaflets. The other side threatened to demolish Terminus House. I think personally there's a world of difference between a simple financial error on a leaflet and telling people that you're going to take away their homes from a building that the council does not even own. So if they're talking about accuracy in campaigns, I believe, and probably some of my people on this side probably believe, that they've got room to talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dunn. Councillor Charles.
Thank you, Chair. I want to contribute to this debate because I think it's important that, as I said in Cabinet only a week ago, that we get very serious about what are the priorities for this town. Now, the Leader of the Council has been very clear, Chair, that what this is doing, the flexible use of capital receipts, is to pump prime the transformation programme of this council. Now, instead of the mudslinging tonight, I think we should look very carefully at what that actually means and what the report is setting out. And I think there have been some legitimate questions posed by the opposition that I also want to cover. So where are we at this moment in time? I think it is also important to just raise in this debate that clearly officers, as we go through this transformation process, are going through a consultation process. So can I just gently remind members to be very careful about their language when they're talking about management and the steps to go about that tonight, because those posts are human beings. Those human beings are council officers who are doing a fantastic job in this town. And everyone in here agrees on that principle. So we're undergoing a significant transformation process in this council. That is difficult and challenging for any administration. And what we're doing is something new for this council, but has been applied elsewhere, and that is, of course, the flexible use of capital receipts. Now, the council, as is already shown in the next report around our performance, is resourcing its corporate missions well, but it wants to pump prime that agenda, and this is a vehicle for doing that. 2 million above existing budgets will be directed to some of these core priorities. Now, I hear what the opposition have just said. They've said that we've hardly mentioned transformation. If you look at the report and the subsequent appendix, transformation flows throughout it.
Exactly.
And the plans and strategy of this council are there for anyone to see. Obviously, the impact of affordability is a rightful question that the opposition would pose. But if you actually read the report, and the leader of the council has stated this in his opening remarks, there is no impact on the prudential borrowing mechanisms that this council operate under. So I just want to offer that reassurance to opposition members and members of the public, Chair, who may be watching tonight. The other key consideration here is, of course, what is the process? Now, Councillor Edwards has raised that. There is a clear process defined for this, and it's in the report.
Yes.
We have to produce a strategy. We have to provide a table for the projects that we want to fund.
And the budget for you.
And a budget in order to do that. And there are restrictions on how you can apply this. Again, the leader of the council was very clear. You cannot apply revenue costs from existing housing stock to this mechanism. We've been very clear, the report states that. The key question for the opposition tonight, when you look at that table, focused on rebuilding our town, securing investment in Harlow's future, delivering a high-performance council with services that can achieve that. The real constructive question for this opposition is, which of those three don't you agree with?
Yes.
Are you telling us tonight, because I've not heard it in any of the speeches, that you don't believe in rebuilding our town? I find that hard to believe. Secure investment in Harlow's future, the local economy, I find that hard to believe. And deliver high-performing council services, I find that hard to believe. But you haven't told us, and you haven't told the public, that you believe in these priorities. So what are your priorities? We've been very clear. We're getting on with that job. So when you take that into consideration tonight, the fundamental is this, Councillor Edwards. I'm pleased to report to the council that there are no clouds hanging over the state of Denmark.
Well done.
Thank you, Councillor Charles. Councillor Perrin.
Thank you, Chair. And I'll answer Councillor Charles's question on behalf of the opposition, because they won't answer it, is they have no priorities, Councillor Charles. That's the problem. And when somebody comes forward with some priorities, they really, really struggle with it. We've heard tonight that they feel that this is all surrounded in subterfuge and murkiness. I don't think anybody could accuse this administration, either under Dan Swords or when I was the leader, of what our primary objective is, which was to transform and regenerate this town, which is precisely what we're doing. Now, if we go back to the report, and as Councillor Charles has rightly said, my lovely big piece of the paper here, it says, the council has the flexibility as set out in the Secretary of State guidance. This isn't something we've decided to do on our own. The Secretary of State allows it. It says, therefore, in line with the process directed by the Secretary of State guidance, a new flexible, so the Secretary of State has approved this. It's all in here. It says there is no impact on the council's prudential indicators. Now, we're going to use money to regenerate the town. We're going to use money to transform council services. Why is that a bother to this party? I don't understand it. You could oppose on so many things, but why oppose on regeneration and transformation? And I'll tell you for why. If I was being cynical, I'll tell you for why. We've heard it out of their mouths. Playing to the gallery. I know how to play to the gallery, he said. I know how to play to the gallery. There's a man that's brought bags of Maltesers into it. He knows how to play to the gallery. A number on a leaflet is a simple error. 10 million of them. That's why we're getting this observation. This is why we're getting this.
Councillor Perrin, there's a point of order being raised, so I need to hear that. 15.57 by way of personal explanation. Yep.
I've been called twice. I've been named twice.
I've named him.
By Councillor Giles there. And then equally by Perrin over there. Councillor Perrin over there. Your microphone's on. Thank you. By Councillor Perrin over there. In terms of in terms of the remark about there's nothing wrong in the state of Denmark or nothing wrong in the state, of course there's something wrong in the state of Denmark.
Councillor Edwards, you've called for a personal explanation. A personal explanation means that you think you've been misinterpreted. I don't remember you saying anything about that.
Right at the very beginning, I opened my speech with the state of Harlow.
Sorry, you didn't say the state of Denmark. That's why I was confused.
Yeah.
So you think you've been misunderstood by Councillor Charles. Please explain why you think you've been misunderstood.
What does that mean to me when I'm speaking?
No, Councillor Perrin, with respect, I'm asking Councillor Edwards to explain his point of order. He's the one that needs to be heard.
And I'm the one that needs to be heard without any interruptions. And every time I've attempted to make the speech this evening, what's happened is there's been, as I've started to make the speech, so people have interrupted me. As I've started to develop my
Councillor Edwards, at the risk of interrupting you again,
the gentleman over there, so I've been interrupted.
Councillor Edwards, at the risk of interrupting you again, you're speaking now on a point of personal explanation. I'd like to know how you think you've been misunderstood. Whether you've been interrupted by points of order or not is not a matter for a personal explanation.
Because Councillor Perrin was saying, or intimating, he said, doesn't have a clue, or words to that effect, in terms of the in terms of this report. What I'm saying is that the public don't have a clue, and the reason they don't have a clue is because in relation to this information, the information in the report, there's a one-liner there, and equally in relation to the rest of the report, there is nothing in the rest of this report about the processes that you're going to do, undertake.
Councillor Edwards, I don't think you have been misinterpreted. Apologies for my stuttering. You've made it clear how you believe you have been misinterpreted to the Chamber, and I'm happy to let that rest. But I think what you're talking about now is the political debate, and as the Chair, I'm not going to stray into making a decision on who is right or wrong on a political debate. You've explained to the Chamber why you think you were misunderstood, so you've set the record straight. If I can now continue with the speeches. Councillor Perrin.
Thank you, Chair. I'm reminded of that Churchill quote, please don't interrupt me when I'm trying to interrupt you. So simply put, the reason I feel that all of this is being so heavily objected to is because, as I have said, that the opposition are indeed playing to the gallery. And they have no credible reason to do it. They talk about not being given the opportunity to debate these things. What we're doing now, we're debating them. It's always being masked in some sort of conspiracy. There is no conspiracy about regenerating this town. For years, this town has suffered from underinvestment. And this party has moved heaven and earth to find the money to invest in this town. And the fact that we are using pre-existing powers to do it, which are not adding to our debt sheet, can only be applauded as far as I'm concerned. So I cannot understand where the objection comes from. I cannot understand why there is so much hot air surrounding this. This is a very good thing for the town. And as Councillor Charles has pointed out, if we look at the appendix, who could argue with any of the things that are being put forward to rebuild our town, to secure investment for Harlow's future? So that means taking this money and investing it in future generations, delivering high-performance council services. It's all costed out. It's all listed there. There's no conspiracy. There's no cover-up. All there is a bloody good plan to use some money to make this place a better place to live.
Thank you, Councillor Perrin. Councillor Durkin.
Gosh, okay, well thank you very much, Chair. I think we need to go back to where we started, which was actually this motion that the Conservatives wants to bring forward. And no one disagrees about transformation, no one disagrees about regeneration, no one disagrees about growth. We're a new town. We were designed on that very principle. And it doesn't matter which side of the chamber we are, Harlow is only good by growing together as a collective. And that's what we should be trying to do, rather than, and I must admit, the real silly debates that we've had, certainly from the last speaker, that what we've turned this into is some sort of personality clown rather than a political discussion. And I agree with your last point. This is a political discussion. Now, we are at a moment where we have got the support of a Labour government who, at the moment, appears to be open to support, suggestion and enabling us to do what we want to do. We've also got an excellent Member of Parliament who has sat in this chamber for a number of years and knows at first hand what the challenges and the opportunities are for it. So instead of having this bickering and this childish attitude about this, why don't we absolutely try to get round something and work together? And the reason why I'm saying that is because the problem is we've lost the trust and confidence of the community. We know that as evidence because every time we go to an election, we get less people interested and bothered to vote for us. And unless we can find a new way of engagement over that, we will become fairly meaningless and not needed by our town. So we need to revisit that trust and confidence. I also, Chair, just want to take a cheeky opportunity to thank and praise Simon Freeman, who I know has left the organisation for whatever reasons, and I'm sure everybody who knew Simon would absolutely put their hat in their air and thank him for his contribution that he has made. So you're in leadership, be leaders. Stop being pathetic and making arguments about what we should be doing. You're the persons that should do it, and the way you do it is you bring people together, not oppose them. And until you can have that grown-up debate and a going up to that, we're always going to be in the negativity. These people don't want to hear this. God only knows if anybody is actually listening to this, but I can't believe that this is what they want. What they want is grown-up discussion, grown-up debate. Yes, there's going to be conflict, but it's going to be political, not personal. So yes, where I start is where I finish, Chair. This chamber, this side, this town wants transformation. They need transformation. This town and everybody else wants regeneration, and we want growth. But we want to do it together. We want to do it collectively. We want to have local ownership. And the only way we can do that is to stop having secret meetings and be open, honest and transparent. Thank you for giving me the chance.
Thank you, Councillor Durkin, for your contribution. Councillor Howard, did I see your hand raised or no? Okay, no. Councillor Gunn.
Thank you, Chair. I hadn't planned to speak in this debate, but I came into politics in Harlow to try and raise the level of debate. Unfortunately, I think there's a bit of an opportunity tonight, and I hope I can take it. I want to start by talking about transformation and what I think that means, from my experience representing initially the Staple Tye ward and now the ward of Lattenbush and Stewards. And for me, transformation, if you want to see what it means, go to Staple Tye. Look at the social housing that we're now getting on and building. Go to Bearcroft, where we've just invested in play facilities for the community there. Go to Cloverfield, where we're getting kick rails restored. Go to the Lattenbush Centre, where we're investing significant sums in one of our most important assets, the most important asset we have in the south of the town. When I see this paper, and I've read the paper, I think I understand the paper, it's about using money that we have to do more of that. And that, I think, is the choice that we have. So for me, I don't think it's a difficult decision. I don't think it's contentious, and I don't see why it would be something that we would argue about on a cross-party basis. And yet we are. I'll be supporting this. I would say, there is a need for all of us to understand how the finances of local authorities work. We're responsible for that. When we make claims about black holes that don't exist, we show that we don't understand it. And I urge all councillors on both sides, and those who aspire to be councillors in future, to engage with the way that we use the finances of this council, the way we use taxpayers' money. We need to use it well. We need to use it efficiently. We need to keep taxes down, and we are doing that. We need to use that money for good, to transform this town for the better. The last 3 years, in my ward and across this town, we've seen that happening. I'm supporting that because I want to see us do more.
Thank you, Councillor Gunn. Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you, Chair. All in this debate, I just wish to turn attention to, as Councillor Edwards has alluded to, it would have been helpful to have greater detail, and I have indeed read the papers and opened Appendix A, but what I was just thinking about as the debate has gone on is the £2 million is a significant sum, and in my head, if I think about the asset sales and transfers that have happened in the last few years, perhaps in the seconder's remarks they could clarify, but would this have surely have come from the sale of the land that the David George land was coming to? Because in terms of why this hadn't been taken up forward before, the powers only came into force in 2016-17, and so some of the more significant sales of land prior to that, say the rugby club or things like that, wouldn't have fell in that bracket, I don't believe. But I welcome a discussion or a debate on that another time. But it seems that it would be helpful if the £2 million, the source of the £2 million could be alluded to a bit more clearer, or if indeed, as has been said already, the planned outlays made clearer still. I see the table, but more detail would be helpful for a more constructive debate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Garnett.
I thought you called somebody else. I wasn't going to. I don't often agree with Councillor Durkee, but he's right. We need to work together. But at the moment, everything we put forward to improve this town, the rest of your group is against it. Tonight we've got £3 million which we can invest in regeneration. For some reason you don't want us to do it. Are you jealous? Because after all the years you were in power, you let this town run down, run down, run down. We're improving it. And sometimes you have to break an egg to make an omelette. And, you know, nothing's perfect. But for Christ's sake, stop arguing with us. We're trying to improve it for the town, not for you. If you don't agree with us, then just shut up.
Councillor Garnett, can I encourage you to remember that we should treat all members with respect in the chamber, and I'm sure you'll take that on board going forward. Councillor Griggs has indicated, and then I've just seen Councillor Kay Morris.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, just a correction. I think Councillor Garnett just mentioned £3 million. Has that gone up since the report was published? Because it says £2 million on here. I think it's absolutely right. The biggest problem with this document at the moment is the lack of meat on the bones. It's a lot of windy political aspiration, which, you know, often that is the case. However, there is one fundamental problem with one part of this, and that's where it refers to restructuring, which could lead to efficiency savings or service transformation. Where's the detail on that? Earlier this week, Councillor Swords gave a presentation to council staff with a very detailed restructure plan. On this side of the chamber, we've not had the courtesy, been given the courtesy of actually seeing that, yet we're being asked to vote on it, on this part of that plan. So how can we possibly, the council staff are not going to get to vote on it, but we are being asked to, if we don't actually have that document to examine and inspect and scrutinise, how on earth can we possibly expect it to push forward with this? You know, it's all very well, you know, we've had comments from this side and from the other side about working together on it, but if we're finding that we're not actually given the tools and the proper information to do it, how on earth do you expect us to go forward with that?
Thank you, Councillor Griggs. Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Chair. The men have spoken. They've said quite a lot. One of them has sworn, quite shockingly, to my ears at any rate. There's been quite a lot of posturing. One even talked about Maltesers. That was hilarious. However, the suggestions that have been made by the gentleman sitting to my left, I'm not going to repeat the words. The gentleman on my left made suggestions that seem to me eminently reasonable, and they are not deserving of the sort of attacks and criticism and mocking that have occurred. Some time ago, I brought a motion to this council, debate, not hate. It was agreed unanimously. And some of you even had the nerve to stand behind a banner as if you believed in that. But there has been something in the atmosphere this evening that's akin to hatred. It's certainly not pleasant. The suggestions, recommendations almost, made by my neighbour here concern working together, greater engagement, greater involvement, councillors, that is all of us, and members of the public. These are all extremely reasonable suggestions. He did not criticise the idea of improving, transforming Harlow. No one has actually said anything like that. But nonetheless, his words have been taken, twisted, and used as a kind of ammunition. And I find some of that, frankly, shocking.
Thank you, Councillor Morrison. Councillor Leppard.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I've heard the debate. I find there's nothing contentious in this. And I actually find it strange that the opposition are questioning a scheme which has existed since 2017. In fact, I would expect them to be telling us about it. I would like to see what their strategy was in the past. Clearly they haven't got it, but that aside, we'll take that as it is. There is nothing here that you can really oppose, because we're not proposing anything that doesn't fit into the strategy of the town.
Please continue, Councillor Leppard. Oh, you'd finished. Thank you. In which case I'm seeing no other... Oh, no, Councillor Carter and then Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Chair. What I would like to say here is that this is a very non-contentious issue. What we're trying to do with this, it is a non-contentious issue. The problem that we have is that every time there is a debate about anything, it doesn't matter what it is, there is one side for it and one side against it. It's always one side fully and the other side fully against it. Councillor Durkin said we should work more together. Well, I think that's absolutely right. And if a good idea comes from the Labour Party or the Conservative Party or the Man in the Moon, if it's good for Harlow, I'll support it. But that doesn't seem to be what happens in this chamber. And we should all think about this, because there's a lot of good things that happen here and they're always opposed by the opposition. Maybe when you were in administration, we did the same the other way round. But it's about time we grew some trousers and actually supported things that are correct. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to speak very briefly to say that this council's in a strong financial position, and I'm certain that residents would want us to be spending this money to better our town rather than hoarding it in bank accounts.
Absolutely.
I hope that everyone can support these efforts, and I look forward to working together and for me playing my part in making our town the best it can be.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. I'll move to Councillor Swords for a right of reply.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members, for what's been an insightful debate. Just to return to what all members are being asked to vote on, it's simply to approve the flexible use capital receipts policy. That's what you're being asked to vote on. You're not actually being asked to vote on spending £2 million, because this council doesn't have such a purpose. As the report sets out, this will be reported to Cabinet on a monthly basis, as all our spending is. It will come to full council again in February, and then on an annual basis. At any time, the council has the power, as set out in the report, indeed in the governance implication, to bring the matter back to council. So you are not being asked to do any of those things. But even if you were being asked to approve £2 million of spending on specific projects, I would draw your attention to a few other things. And I think Councillor Edwards made an interesting point about debate on financial matters, on the council considering such matters, having a discussion, briefing and things of the like. He would be aware, of course, in September, this council, as it's formed, waved through, no debates, no questions, no comments, anything of the like, £69.84 million of spending on housing assets. Not a question asked. Waved it through. No problems with that. Indeed, a few months earlier, in February, with no scrutiny, no detail on a single proposal, no detail on a single project at hand, waved through £120 million of spending on housing services this year. Waved through a further, in total, close to £250 million worth of spending, without a single detail on a project. No questions asked, not an issue raised. There was a comment about not having time to understand the policy fully. As a Councillor Perrin referenced, there's been 7 years to understand the policy. The detail is, this strategy, the policy set out, is pretty much identical to every other council in the country that has a flexible use capital receipts policy and strategy. There is nothing within this that's not contained. There are no details missing from this compared to any other councils of the like. So I really do find it interesting to consider the notion that there's not been time for questions. Not one member of the opposition has asked me a single question. Standing orders allows you all to ask 2 questions. Not one question has been asked. This paper was published 8 days ago. Has there been any questions leading up to this? If councillors really wished to understand such a proposal, I'm sure they could meet with independent officers, they could meet with me, they could meet with any member of the Cabinet to discuss such a matter. They've chosen not to do so. Coming back to the proposal at hand, we are suggesting that unallocated capital receipts that are not being used for anything else, that are currently have been accrued and are not identified to be spent on anything, are freed up, as Councillor Charles said, to pump prime, moving this council forward. And I heartily welcome Councillor Durkin's support in that vein. I think it's a very sensible notion, as he set out, that this is a good thing. Of course it's a good thing. Would any taxpayer truly believe a better use of the money would be to do, as Councillor Shepherd says, leave it unallocated, as it has been for a number of years? This is not money that's arrived in the last 5 minutes. This has been unallocated for years, and we are proposing to enable the council to draw down on that funding, to use it as is deemed appropriate. I don't think, as I say, that any taxpayer would rather that money sit here and never be spent, whilst we cry out for investment to transform this council, to make it more efficient, to invest in regeneration. As Councillor Dunn said, he referenced an error, a financial error. I totally understand that, given their comments. Like I say, you wave through £250 million of spending without a single question, and then balk at the idea of enabling the council to draw down on funding that will be reported each month, that you can question whether it's been done well or not. Indeed, this could have been called to scrutiny if the scrutiny committee wished to scrutinise the matter. Didn't happen. So forgive me for thinking it's a tad disingenuous to now suggest, at the time you come to vote on the matter, when you've had 8 days to consider it. Indeed, actually, this proposal came weeks and weeks before, so you've had a number of weeks to consider the proposal, but now you need more time to ask questions and understand it and debate it. I really do think residents would not see too kindly on that. I again reference the comment that Councillor Durkin made about bringing people together, not opposing them. I don't think any of you would feel comfortable facing any resident and making the case that the funding should be left unallocated as opposed to spent on improving services for them. I truly do not believe that any of you feel that way. I don't believe that. You're not being asked to vote on a restructure. You're not being asked to vote on any single project or proposal, because that's a matter for Cabinet. What you're being asked to do is consider the budget implications in the round, of which Table 2 sets out very clearly there are 0, 0, 0 and 0. This has no effect on our debt, no effect on our potential indicators, and I genuinely hope that all councillors would support such an investment.
Thank you, Councillor Swords. I'm unclear from the debate where the vote is going to go, so I'm going to call for all those in favour of the recommendations. And all those against? And abstentions? 1. That's carried. The motion is carried.